At Domino's, we're more than pizza, so mix it up with our specialty chicken, stuffed cheesy bread, sandwiches, pastas, medium two-topping pizzas, and more for just $5.99 each, and we'll mix stand-up comedy with a robot.
Stuffed cheesy bread and my act have a lot in common. They're both super cheesy. Tough crowd.
You can also mix it up with Domino's salads, marbled cookie brownie, bread twist, and medium two-topping pizzas. Order any 2 or more for just $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Bone-in wings, handmade pan pizza, and bread bowl pasta will be extra. You must ask for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guests and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of S4, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast or reproduction of this broadcast or podcast without express written consent of S4 is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to S4 Radio. Coming to you live from the dark side of midnight. Climb aboard as we explore all aspects of the paranormal, from UFOs and Bigfoot to ghosts and astral travel, and all the fringe subjects in between. You have found the cutting edge of paranormal talk radio with your host, Eric Cooper, and our S4 panel of specialists. Prepare to go to the edge. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4 with Eric Cooper, broadcasting live from the beautiful mountains of Concrete, Washington. Tonight we are discussing crop circles. Tonight on our panel we have Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, Cole Wegleitner, owner of Statement of Sound DJ Productions, R. Keith Andrews, our FMP alien specialist, Michael Hall of UFO I-Team, myself, Corey Reese, and your host for Spoon Paranormal Zone, Mr. Eric Cooper.
Oh, it feels like it's been forever. Yeah, so I was at the Caribou Paracon last weekend, and it was awesome. It was a very good event. Got to meet Grant Cameron and Ross Allison. Ross Allison is hopefully coming next year, along with, well, I won't say no names yet until I get them locked in. Ross Allison is penciled in, however, though. So we had an outstanding 4-hour meeting today of post-Paracon plus Paracon 2019 plus FMP business, and it was a great meeting. So I think Cole's going to be probably a regular on the show for the most part, bringing in some great native lore when it comes to topics that we do discuss. So how's everyone doing tonight?
Just great, thanks. How's yourself?
Good. Fantastic.
Good. And it's always great seeing Trippin, and I got to give a shout out. Trippin's in the chat room. That's always awesome. So crop circles, what do we know about them?
Well, they're mostly round.
Not always.
That's why
mostly man-made.
Well, here's the difference between man-made, because I remember the two British chaps that, they had boards and they showed how they made them with boards, but how in the heck they're going to make 100 in a night?
Well,
not possible.
Not only is that going to be a problem, the thing that the Brits couldn't do was give the hyper compacting of the ground and the radiation trace.
That's a little bit hard.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I was going to bring up too. Is the difference between a real crop circle that is alien made and oh good God, and man made is one. Using corn, for example, the stalks are generally bent without broken. They're intertwined uniquely without, again, being broken. The cellular structure of the crop is altered, and you'll find radiation trace. Those are probably your three biggest differences. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Didn't some of those crop circles, where some of the stalks of whatever it was bent, have malformations like bumps and stuff on them from whatever radiation was causing it?
Exactly. And who's beating up my phone? So we're working a case while I'm talking here, so I'm going to turn my volume off because the case is being handled. And yes, folks, even though we're on the show, we FMP is working 24/7, and it gets very tiring. But
that's
absolutely,
why you guys drink so much coffee.
We have stocks in well, not yeah. I'm not going to say any brand names unless they're paying us. If they're paying us for advertising, then by all means. But and I love the movie Signs because you say crop circles, I automatically think of Signs. I just remember, Mel Gibson's face when he walks into his his cornfield and sees this crop circle. So what race is making these, Keith? Do you have any idea? And what do they mean?
In fairness, that's a varied issue. It depends on the crop circle. Because sometimes it's landmarks, sometimes, or not landmarks, but travel marks. Like I saw one, and do not ask me where it was, aside from on the ground. But I saw one that was literally indicating a jump point. Okay. And I mean, it's just basically a lot of them are, if you will, a message board.
Right.
Okay. If you've got a number of ships passing by the area and you want everybody to get to the same place, and they're not all speaking the same language, or they're coming through so far apart that, communication is a problem. Leaving a sign taped onto the wall, taped into the middle of a crop, makes it very easy for them to figure out where you're heading.
Right.
But the thing is, crop circles are a normal method of communication. This is why I say it depends on which method and which ship and what the reason for it. That's your biggest issue, because it's not just one group that does it.
So do they actually communicate back and forth using crop circles? I mean, is it a language, or is it just landmarks?
No, it is. There is a certain amount of linguistics to it. The closest way I can put it would be the military semaphore. Okay, there are certain patterns that are used. Like, usually it's done in the form of using stellar landmarks.
And Markham's in the chat room, and so there hasn't been any evidence yet because, well, no one's brought any evidence. You don't see too many. I haven't seen too many crop circles in the States. Most of them are in the UK.
Yeah, but I've seen documentaries where they try and prove their point, and when you do any background, they show the nodes and all this stuff. Nodes are naturally occurring on wheat crops anyway.
Okay.
And then they try and they say all this other the usual spiel when you're trying to prove that crop circles are real. When you research into the lab, you find out that it's not an accredited lab. and there's usually a connection with one of the people that wants to prove that, crop circles are ET made. Now, I'm not saying they're all man-made, because I don't have any proof the other way either. But it just seems like the credibility, the people that are pro crop circle are shooting themselves in the foot because they're so invested in it that instead of presenting the evidence fair and documented with, accredited lab results, they're trying to weight the argument to their side.
The one thing that I can say about that is, we've talked about this many times. The problem is that most of your accredited labs will ignore it. They'll laugh at it and scoff at it because, it doesn't fall within what the scientific community calls something that should even be looked at. So there we run into a problem. How do you get an accredited lab to do the work and put it out there as accredited science when they won't even take a look at it to start with? And then the other instances is how do you explain some of the other things that you find there? Let's just set aside the fact that nodes grow naturally, even though I do find it a little hard to believe that many nodes grow naturally. Nodes grow naturally. How do you account for radiation? How do you account for the fact that these stalks are bent but not broken? I mean, they've shown time and time again, especially the guys that were actually creating crop circles with boards, the stalks were always broken. They were never just bent, not broken. Okay.
I have an idea for that. They're doing it at night when there's dew on the ground, the humidity is higher, the stalks are more flexible. If you're doing it daylight in front of a camera crew in the middle of the day, when the humidity's down, the stalks are more brittle.
Well, the logic there is pretty solid, in all fairness.
And I can give you that. But how about radiation? I mean, crops don't normally put off higher rads of radiation when you put a Geiger counter out to it.
Yeah, but the problem is we don't know we don't know what the background radiation for that spot was, because nobody's just going through the field with a Geiger counter to get a baseline. We don't know that higher radiation wasn't already there. You see what I'm saying? No. There's no baseline for that field. Nobody's sweeping every square inch of a wheat field before it's planted to see what the radiation is, what the background radiation is.
Yeah,
when you have a crop circle and then you go in there and you find radiation, well, was it there already? You don't know. You don't have anything to correlate with. You don't have a negative and a positive control.
So technically, though, you should be able to go to the crop field across the street, across the highway, whatever, get a baseline off that, because wouldn't you assume that both fields
assumptions in science is a bad idea.
No, I don't think you really can't. Not when you're trying to prove something. Not like that. You can. You could. That's too small a sample size. You go to this field now. If you go to 100 fields in the area and do subject each one of them to a radiation background check and find out that your field is the outlier, then maybe you've got something. But just going to one other place, that doesn't hold up statistically because the sample size is too small.
Well, one of the things
you don't have a before and after. I'm playing devil's advocate here. I don't think they're all man-made, but I'm pointing out, in order to prove something scientifically beyond just we hope, we wish, we want it to be, I'm telling you what would have to be done in order to, like maybe at the end of the after the guy harvests the crop, go in when that field is fallow, before anything's been done with it, go in and check out, do the radiation, the background radiation. Even if that spot is still higher, you have a baseline.
Okay.
Well,
radiation is going to dissipate over time. It's going to, whatever the decay rate, whatever causes that radiation. Now go back afterwards or the next time a crop circle appears in that area, because it seems like they hit the same guys just about every year. They hit the same fields. Then see, is that the same as it was? Has it gone up? Has it gone down? Then you have some evidence. Then you've got some kind of trend you can look at.
It's simpler than that, though. All you've got to do is test inside the crop circles and test outside the crop circles in the same field. Even, matter of fact, not that far away from the crop circle. That's what Corey's talking about. Professor Levengrid, who had done years and years of studies on these things, have shown too that the nodes that are there at the bend of these stalks, for instance, in wheat and those kinds of things, have the rads or the radioactivity coming out of the nodes themselves as well. And of course, then the crops right next to that do not have the nodes at all, and or don't have the radiation. So it's not like you have to test the whole field and test the field after the crop is gone, because there's definitely within that circle, within that design, and matter of fact, most of them nowadays are so complicated and fascinating that they're not even circles any longer. But that's how you would test it, definitely.
Well, one of the things
still don't know what was there first.
One of the things I've noticed too is that within the shapes is where the radiation is, and nowhere else outside it, thus far as what's been proven. Also, is that the radiation doesn't seem to last that long. It's kind of a short-lived thing. It disappears after a little while. So you have to ask yourself, and this still applies to the scientific theory, why would that be? Why would there be radiation only within whatever design or crop circle or however you like to put it? Why would it only be there, for one, in a large field? Especially as something that has a complicated shape to it. If the radiation is only within that shape, that's very odd. For one, and two, why would it fade away so quickly? I mean, if there was a high radiation issue there prior, it would still be there and it would stay there. It wouldn't fade away.
Now, has anybody ever come forward and say, is it alpha radiation? Because that stuff is easy to generate and it disappears quickly. Or is it gamma? I mean, which alpha, beta, gamma, what type of radiation are we talking about?
Interestingly enough, I don't have the answer to that one.
I don't either. I've never actually seen anybody go that far either.
Go that specific.
Well, and sticking with the idea that they are man-made, like that they could be man-made, would it not be possible to use some type of radiation like some type of chemical that has a radioactive signature that dissipates fairly quickly when you're building it, and spray it only in that area?
Technically, radioisotope in it.
But can you imagine the cost that, they'd really want to hoax, if that's what it came down to. That'd be, why would you put that kind of money and that kind of time into a hoax unless you really want to disprove it? Say that again?
To disprove the constant theory.
Well, and that's always a possibility. And I agree with Markham. Yeah, I would say 90% of them are natural. No, maybe not natural, obviously not. But, natural radiation, whatever the case is. And even if it was only a 10% ratio that was extraterrestrial made would still be 10% more than, I mean, it'd be something.
Yeah,
Like, the thing
what
is-
gets me, originally they were circles.
Right.
And it would be a main circle with a circle here, circle. You can almost see it. It's like an evolving art form. Then all of a sudden if you watch, okay, it starts out with circles. Very simple circles. Then the Mandelbrot set was discovered. You have fractals and, this became okay, now all of a sudden once the Mandelbrot set was discovered and this fractal art becomes popular, lo and behold, now our crop circles are starting to, be complicated. It's almost like somebody calculated a Mandelbrot set and transferred it into a crop. You know what I'm saying? It's why weren't they complex to start with? What I'm saying, to me, if it wasn't a man-made thing, there wouldn't be an evolution to it. They should have started out. I would thought they would have started out complex with all the information they're supposed to be passing on, not starting out simple and then, evolving with the graphic arts over the last 30 years.
Well, let's jump down a Crow's question real quick, or comment. What if crop circles were the result of energy weapons testing? What's your thoughts on that?
It doesn't add up.
It doesn't have enough to stress. It wouldn't be much of a weapon if it's not destroying what it's after.
That's true. What if it's hard?
I would think it'd be more widespread. Right.
Does anyone know when the first crop circle was made?
They go back, way back. I mean, even in like Irish folklore, Dark Ages, they talk about crop circles, and they were made by the gods or the fae, and some, there's a history of crop circles that goes back some time, but I don't think it was until this. I think to me the popularized ones that we see now are mid-70s.
Okay, so I found some information on the radiation. It appears that the crops and soil testing after some of these, there was 4 short-lived radioisotopes: vanadium, europium, tellurium, and ytterbium.
Okay, I don't know right off. I just thought of a way that you could get a solution, cheap, waste chemicals from the X-ray process. We actually, one of my hospitals I worked at years ago got busted because they were pouring the waste chemicals from the, maybe not so much now because we do things digitally, but in the old days when you did an X-ray and it was actually a piece of film, they were dumping the chemicals down the drain, and it was showing up inside the municipal sewage. The where they were doing the purification of the sewage plant. So maybe if you want to spike a field to show a radioactive, some kind of radioactive activity, might be using some kind of, medical waste.
2 questions on that.
From an X-ray process or something.
2 questions on that. One is, how many radioisotopes are used in X-ray? And 2 is, the risk of that seems to be high in the fact that a person doing that would get radiation sickness.
Well, it's low enough that it's a dosage effect thing. If you don't bathe in it and use it every day, you know what? I'm going to pause. I'm going to duck out for a minute. I'm going to answer your question, I'm going to run down to my X-ray department and ask them. One of them's been around long enough that they remember film, but pre-digital stuff. So let me go get some first-hand data on that. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Excellent. And let's reiterate real quick, because, Crow just left for a snack when we were answering his question. So to answer the question, could it be an energy weapon? The deduction was probably not, because if it was a weapon, it would cause a lot more damage than what you see with crop circles.
Yeah, it wouldn't be much of a weapon.
No.
Yeah, not really.
Because, there'd be a lot more digging. It'd go down a lot farther. It would probably damage the crops versus just altering genetics.
Now, playing devil's advocate, there's one option there that I could see that could be possible, and it was if they were testing intensity levels and accuracy of a weapon. They could turn it way down and then just test the accuracy of it by, look, I can paint art.
Well, what if it was some kind of a sound generator causing a vibration, movement of air?
And that could work. The thing that I look at whenever we start looking at that side of the weaponry, though, of the potential weaponry, is when you look at some of the crop circles, they've been proven to have very definitive relevance to, for instance, stellar systems that are known. Why use an energy weapon to make that kind of an imprint?
Well, I want to bring up 2 points, 2 different thoughts here, because we've discussed the propulsion systems of some of these craft before. And going back to the trumpet sounds that different countries were hearing, could that kind of a trumpet sound generation system on a craft be the same kind of a propulsion system that could cause a crop circle?
If it were just creating a circle with no other amenities to it, no other additions to it, like the multiple circles, if it were just causing a circle.
Right.
Okay. 2 factors to look at. 1, it would have to be only a single circle. 2, if it's a sonic impact, it's going to punch everything outwards. It's not going to weave them.
Okay.
And they also aren't going to just lay down. With that kind of thrust, you're not going to get them to lay down smoothly without breaking.
So it would probably essentially burn a ring instead of intertwining it.
In all likelihood, yes. Or blast it, like I think it was called the concussion blast.
Okay.
Even that, where if it were a concussive impact, where it hammers into the ground and then the returning air pulls everything down. Right, but in either event, it wouldn't be complex pictographs.
I want to bring something up. Since we're talking trumpet sounds, it brought up a question or a comment from Trippin. So trumpet sounds are proven to be new building designs, London trumpets as vents for AC units. We're talking multiple nations here, multiple continents that we're getting these trumpet noises. You're telling me all these different continents have the same new building design that was causing trumpets in all the continents?
Not likely.
No, it's, that's one of those things where some of the countries that were complaining about these trumpet sounds were countries that didn't have any of this new design stuff. So, I mean, poor countries, that were
Israel.
They were saying, yeah, exactly, and they were talking about these trumpet sounds in places where none of that type of stuff was available. Though I could see what he's talking about. I mean, there could be like in London, there could be some of that where that is the trumpet sound. Right. It's very possible. Wind blowing through stuff makes funny noises, but
it does.
It can't be all of the places.
And
No.
even if you're only looking at a small percentage, they're still on multiple different different continents.
Yeah, agreed. I've spent numerous years in the Middle East, and they don't get new building designs. They're all made of. Oh God, I'm trying to think of the name of the. Yeah, and I can't remember the name of the material they make. I should, but it's been a while. But Dennis brings up, trumpet sounds were also heard in the wilderness by lumber workers.
Yeah, those are pretty much the same design for the trees that have been there for, centuries.
Right. So, although I can see, I can see London. Some of the largest cities that have sky rises and whatnot. I can see them if they modified building designs or whatnot, but not all of them. Not near.
Oh, going back to what you asked earlier, Eric, the first time the term was coined of a crop circle, the term crop circle was coined, was in 1980 by Colin Andrews. But before that, 1932, an archaeologist named E.C. Kerwin observed 4 dark greens in a field near Sloughton Down in England. He could only examine one, and it was a circle in which the barley was lodged or beaten down, while the interior area was very slightly rounded up. So that is the first one that was documented by a scientific member of the community.
Well, what's interesting too is you've got crop circles, but I also look at the Nazca Plains. Who's familiar with the Nazca Plains?
I am.
Yeah, of course.
Those weren't exactly crop circles, but these were designs that were in rock and sand that could only be seen from the air. This is what century was that, Michael?
Well, I'm not sure, but they have been there for probably hundreds of years, from what I hear.
Yeah, and that was long before airplanes. It was long before there was any kind of man that was up in the sky. And
right,
they had to have been seen from above to create them.
Well, yeah, even the people on the ground, if they decided they wanted to design something like that, they would really have to have some mathematical calculations to make these figures so large. I mean, they're not just straight lines. A lot of them are, but there are figures of spiders, monkey, all sorts of intricate designs that are.
There's one they called the airport too. It's kind of like a runway.
Yeah, right. And they're very, very straight, and they almost seem to be put there for some kind of a message or directional beacon sometimes as well.
Right.
Essentially the same purpose, just a different year.
Yeah, there you go.
I could see if those things were all of a sudden proven to have been made more recently. Something like that had been done or found more recently and was proved that it was pretty much new, that could be a valid complaint that it was faked because of all of the drones and stuff that you have nowadays you could watch from the air as you made your design. But the fact of the matter is that these things were made so long ago, that wasn't even an option. So it had to be made from something from the air, which wasn't really available then by us to have this happen. Because like Michael was saying, unless you had some serious mathematical calculations, which I don't think some of the people in the area had at the time, it'd be pretty much impossible to make those things as accurate as they are.
Right. They were created in 500 BCE, between 500 BCE and 500 CE. So you're talking, a long time ago.
Yeah, just a day or two, and The theory is they didn't have planes.
Right. So, yeah, and those, you look at historical fact here, long before crop circles. I see those as essentially the first crop circle, without being crops, obviously.
See, the thing is, there is one way that people could get that kind of an image back then, like with the not the crop circles, but I'm dropping a blank. Anyway, the ones on the Nazca plains there, is if you had a seer that could actually take a look at it and lay it out.
Right.
Okay, if you were to take a seer and use them to plot it out for you, then you could actually do it.
That's a hell of a seer.
Well, yeah, it's what's called remote viewing. Remember, you guys do that once in a while.
Yeah, but still.
No, we ask. We don't remote view.
Yeah,
No, you guys do the astral.
Yeah, we do the astral. We don't do the remote view. Some people do remote view. We don't. We do astral. But yeah,
but same concept. In all fairness, you go astral, you go airborne, and lay out what you want.
Sure. I suppose you could, yeah.
But that said, it still wouldn't explain the higher density inside the markers. Inside the image.
Yeah, no,
right.
It doesn't.
So, Cole, what do you have for us in the way of Native American lore?
Okay, so here's the deal. Honestly, with our lore that I've been able to find, there is not a lot on crop circles. Every Native American tribe has their own lore pertaining to aliens, honestly. My own people, the Cree out of northern Canada, believe that we came down to Earth as spirits, only to become human.
That pretty much matches what I'm aware of.
And every tribe has their own thing. In central Wyoming, there is a small plateau cave wall that has a depiction of a Native American man greeting what we view as an alien. What I would say, as Keith would describe, as one of the Greys.
Yeah, which makes total sense from my end.
Now, none of the tribes that I could find have ever talked about there being crop circles. But the problem with that is we wouldn't really have noticed. Back then, honestly, we would have seen crops damaged. Man, that sucks. If we don't move, we're going to die.
And exactly.
It wouldn't have been, what is this? It would have been,
what do we do
need
now?
To move our people, because if we don't figure something out for food for our winter, we are not going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a lot on crop circles, but like I said, out there in the interweb, there are tons of stories from our different tribes, but most of them have been passed down due to the mass genocide of the Native American people. A lot of our stories have been destroyed, and therefore so is a lot of our history.
Right, because a lot of it was oral tradition, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It still is, honestly, to this day. If you go into most reservations, they do not have books on what our tribes did or were about. There's very few Native authors that actually write compared to other people's histories, because it's just not the way we do it. It has always been oral, and it still is.
Right. And Markham must have got caught.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. The only problem that I see with oral traditions is that, and they've proven this, scientifically, if you start at one end of a room and you whisper a 2-sentence statement into somebody's ear, by the time it gets to the other end of the room of, say, 15 people, what started out as one 2-sentence statement could be a single sentence statement, or just two completely different sentences at the end of the line.
That's very accurate.
Yeah,
but with oral tradition, they concentrate so heavily on making absolutely certain that you've got it memorized perfectly before you're elected a storyteller,
Right.
Or a chronicler. That they don't have that problem.
And I
Right.
could honestly say that the same problem happens with books. Like when you do it in book form, you look at the Bible. How much has that changed from the original actual script?
Aside from language, here's a cute one for you regarding the Bible. I was taking a look at one from, and I've got a Bible from most religions, but specifically I was looking at one from the Jehovah's Witness that was recently printed sometime within the last 10 years. I took another copy of their Bible that was printed from the mid-50s, and there were massive changes inside the first couple of pages. Now, if they're doing that with English to English, can you picture what they're doing with it from, Aramaic to any other language?
And that's a given, and that's one book that I never really like to look at as a comparison because, there was so many changes because of what people wanted to change. You had King James that wanted to make serious changes and leave lots of stuff out. So it was, that's a book I don't even like to compare. But I mean, if you compare other books, from way back when, just regular books, ones that were recopied and rewritten as later editions, most of the time it's still, I would say, 95% the same with minute changes in them, So it's, in most cases, I would say, opinion-wise, that the books would be more accurate than a verbal pass down. But as you said, these people were much more careful. I mean, they made sure that a story was memorized to its absolute T before they allowed somebody to pass it on. So I can't say for sure.
Yeah, and you think about it, in any culture, things will always be taken out of the context because, when the scriptures are writing about Pharaoh in ancient Egypt, they're not going to write, Pharaoh had diarrhea tonight. That is not something that's going to be written. But if he was sick to that point and no one mentions it, and then all of a sudden he died, that can become a whole nother story that's surrounded by mystery. It's that thing where you don't always put in the things that are seem inconsequential at the time, but are actually the leading cause, but you didn't know.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it looks like we've got Markham back now. What do you have for us, sir?
Well, what I was thinking of is the waste that you have to regulate in the old X-ray process was a silver halide left over from the unexposed silver. It's a silver bromide. But we put our heads together, and one thing you could do, and one thing to keep in mind also, when you see these people testing a site, and this is just from what I'm seeing, it's like we go here, the radiation level's low. We go inside the crop circle, and it's high. that doesn't mean that somebody with access to, say, medical nuclear med waste hasn't seeded that area. I'm just thinking of the different ways you could fake it. That if I wanted to prove that it's more radioactive inside than it is outside, I could do it with readily available medical waste products that are right here in my lab and in my hospital that I could get a hold of.
But still,
I'm not saying that is the answer, but it could be done.
Sure,
easily.
But then you still beg back to the question of the 4 elements that they found, radioactive isotopes that they found, were those ones that were used at that time in medical that could be gotten and spread out like that. And if they were, were the risks high enough for the levels that they would have to lay it down at for them to be severely poisoned? And were there anybody at that time that was severely poisoned from it?
There's another aspect to the whole crop circle thing, is that there are many examples of those crop circles being formed right on film, on camera. It's fascinating to watch. These little white lights, basically kind of like orbs, are flying over the field, and the crop circles lie down like in a second. It's not like they're carving them out at all. It's they're flying over the top, and these crop circles just appear like instantly almost.
Yeah, it's almost like 3D printing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's almost as like they've got the pattern ahead of time of what they are going to create, and it just these probes or whatever they are flying right over the field and just transmitting some kind of signal to the crop.
Yeah, it would be called a drone.
Yep.
Yeah, cause I remember seeing one video. I can't remember the director, but it was an orange ball of light, and they like you said, Michael, they actually have it on video where this orange ball of light came across the field, and when it left, there's a crop circle right there where the orange ball had been. So yeah, these are things that are actually happening in front of people. Nothing current. I believe this is back in the 90s that I remember this video.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're, agreed. A lot of them can be fake. But again, not all of them, by any means.
Yeah.
And those are the ones you need to take a look at.
And I just think it's funny that, okay, if you look at the original crop circles that started to be popular, very simple. Here's a circle. Here's a concentric circles, almost like they were laid out by a kid with a spirograph. As our graphic arts, computer-driven graphic arts have gotten more complicated, it's almost like a well-drilled team of graphic arts nerds generate these things on a computer, then go lay them down in a field. I mean, keep in mind that in Great Britain, art school is an option. Not everybody goes to like the kind of what we would consider a border region school, or where you learn reading, writing, and arithmetic. I mean, they have a thing called art school, art college. A lot of the musicians come from there. It's like, I'm just saying, and they seem to show up mostly in Great Britain. You get a bunch of guys practicing, you get a group together. I purport that what they're doing is laying out this intricate, using a computer program to lay out this intricate template, and then they drill, because, there's a season for these things.
Right.
They drill, they get it down to where, okay, we can get this done in a couple hours. And I've actually seen a mainstream documentary. I don't remember what it was, but probably YouTube think this team of art nerds went out into this field, laid out this incredibly complicated crop circle formation, did their thing, left. The next day, of course, it was publicized, and your cereologists were coming out and, this is, saying all the same, and this was a known man-made crop circle, and, it spoofed the experts. Now, also given that documentary had an axe to grind, and it could have been, all of it could be, BS. I mean, you just really can't take any. I would like to do my own study. I would love to get out to a real crop, a purported real crop circle, and take the data my way and see what I'm looking at.
Exactly.
That would be a fantastic thing to be able to do. One of the comments in the chat room said this. Someone said that crop circles would stay the same and not get more complex based on art forms of the times. But we currently, in our own language, basically, I'm kind of paraphrasing here a little bit, we use emojis instead of actually saying things. So if crop circles are basically a language, why would they not change as well? And I can kind of see that.
But they are changing.
Yeah.
They are changing.
Yeah.
But it's almost like we're simplifying our language by going to emojis. The original crop circles were more like emojis, and now we're getting into epic poetry. You know what I mean? It's
oh, yeah.
Yeah, but originally we were using emojis before, too. You think of hieroglyphics in the ancient Egypt and cave symbols.
Right.
We used emojis there before, too. We just advanced, and now we're kind of going back to it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just, I find it suspicious that crops as computer-generated graphic arts capabilities have evolved over the last 30 years, so have the complexity of the crop circles.
Well, and
it seems to me if this language is what's being used by these ETs, it should have been as complicated then as it is now. There's not we're not talking about cavemen or ancient Egyptians in these ships. Might be their forefathers, and stuff, but but you know what I'm saying? It's almost the evolution of the crop circle and the evolution of our computer graphics seem to be going hand in hand. Now, whether this is ET saying, "Oh, maybe they can decipher this easier now because they're starting to catch, they're starting to evolve in their graphic arts," or whether, like I think, being the skeptic that I am, that as our graphic arts programs get more complicated, the people that are making the crop circles are making them more complicated. It's a evolution, hand-in-hand evolution.
Well, and you had missed part of what I had said earlier when you went to get some information. And one of the things I said, we were talking about, what the heck was it? The glyphs that are, I can't remember where now. Anyways, but
you're talking Nazca Plains.
That's the one.
Oh, the Nazca lines?
Yeah. So we were talking about those, and what I had said was, if those things were made in today's world, I could see why it would definitely be something of more of a skepticism, simply for the fact that we have drones and different things like that now that could be in the air watching as you make these things on the ground to make sure that you get everything just right. But a lot of these things, and not talking about current crop circles or anything else like that, but a lot of these things were made back when there weren't even planes. So, without some serious, as Michael had been talking about, some serious math being done, to get down just the exact right layout for some of this stuff. A lot of these people didn't have during those times that these things were laid down. It would be pretty much impossible to lay out some of these glyphs, or crop circle type things without having something in the air to show you, and they didn't have it, so it would be pretty much impossible.
Right.
Another aspect of the Nazca lines might be that if indeed there were ETs, in conjunction with these lines, maybe the ETs did something similar to crop circles by marking the land, to have the human inhabitants follow the template that they're putting down on the hard surface of these plains, because basically what I gather here is that they are scraping away the actual surface of the land to make these lines. And what if the UFOs or ETs are actually putting down a template for people to follow to actually scrape away the lines to make these figures? That might be almost like a crop circle if crop circles indeed are real.
So
I've actually seen where they had laid it out with they made a Nazca line like formation from the ground, and it's just a matter of you make the art and you increase the scale and you lay it out on the ground. Just like basic surveying. And keep in mind, these people back then weren't stupid when it came to math. Look at the star charts they left behind. And the calendars, and, the intricate mathematical relics that these people have left behind. They knew enough about basic geometry that I think they could have laid those out on the ground without looking from above.
Well, why would they do it?
They found batteries
as an offering to their gods.
Well, there you go. Who are those
gods? Then we get, that's just it. Who were they and where are they now?
Obviously, the gods are something that comes from the sky. So
right,
that's
sky gods.
Yep.
You get the Hopi, the Peruvians, the Hopi, many of the, can't pull them all off, but so many. It seems like Native Americans and, I'm saying from Canada down to South America have two types. They either had sky gods or they came up from the ground. It's like there's no in between. There's always one or the other. And there's, the Kachinas of the Hopi. They're sky gods. There's something to it, I think. Some kind of ET connection.
Can I go back to what you were saying before about how the two, the difference between the crop circles and the basis of our computer technology has advanced?
Yeah.
Would it not be a possibility that, yes, our computer programming has advanced to that point? If these are directions or plans or anything for us and not just a random landing of a craft, that they're thinking in the last 50 years we've advanced so well, maybe they can give us more intricate plans.
I wonder, and I'm just sort of, I mentioned something like that. Are they making it more complicated because they see that our graphic arts, our computer arts are evolving? It seems, okay, here's one for our Keith Andrews.
Okay, hold on.
Why don't they just...
We got to go to a break, so...
I see it. Okay.
It is that time, so hang on to that thought for a second. I want you to ask that question definitely when we come back from break. So when we come back from break, we'll continue our discussion on crop circles. Tonight on our panel, we have Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, Cole Wegleitner, owner of Statement of Sound DJ Productions, our Keith Andrews, our FMP alien specialist, Michael Hall of UFO I-Team, myself, Corey Reese, and Eric Cooper of of Forest Moon Paranormal. Join us every Saturday night at midnight Pacific Standard Time. You can find us on Spreaker.com and The Fringe FM. And for you local listeners, you can catch our shows on KSVU 90.1 on your FM dial on Saturdays from 10 to midnight. Please go to thefringe.fm and check out the show lineup with shows like Lighting the Void with Joe Roop and a plethora of other good shows. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back.
This is Joe Roop from Lighting the Void, and you're listening to KTLK digital broadcasting station, The Fringe FM.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com.
Select Joe Roop at checkout at AncientLifeOil.com.
This is Mary Ellen Popick of the Sanctuary for Mind, Body, and Spirit. Listen on the Fringe FM every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern, where we talk all things mind, body, and spirit. You'll learn things from the esoteric to modern-day health, as well as hear from incredible special guests. There will be something for everyone each week, so don't miss it. That's every Monday night, 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern, live right here on the Fringe FM. See you there.
Reclaim your active lifestyle with Angioprim. Angioprim is the original liquid oral chelation supplement. Chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in your veins and arteries that can cause blockages. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. Find out more. Go to angioprim.com. Talk to a trained consultant by calling Angioprim toll-free 877-882-7221.
This is author Gordon Roop of GordonRoop.com, and you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
How you doing today, guys? This is Garrett Lee.
And this is Randy Warner.
From the Healers and Hellraisers podcast.
A podcast about people.
You're going to hear stories from the enlightening to the frightening.
Told by those who lived it.
Listen right here on the Fringe FM.
Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and on the Fringe Free-For-All, right here on the Fringe FM.
Hey folks, guess what the number one phrase that Life Change Tea receives by email? You ready? We love this tea. We love this tea. Time after time, week after week, we love this tea. Life Change Tea gives you more energy, a beautiful cleansing, and fulfills its slogan perfectly. The tea that makes you go. So if you want to be on your health game, log on to getthetea.com and order Life Change Super Strength Tea. Packages come in a 1-month supply, and when you brew this stuff, wait until you see the results. Aren't we all about the results? And with a lot of people's health struggling, we can use a little bit of help. Doctors will tell you disease starts in the gut. So log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Be our next email saying, I love this tea. I love this tea. Get the tea at getthetea.com. Helping America one tea bag at a time.
This is Reverend John M. Polk from johnpolkmedia.com, and you are listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hi, this is Ryan Gable, host of the Secret Teachings radio show. If you are interested in ancient knowledge and hidden mysteries, as well as a unique and balanced perspective on conspiracies, symbols, and the occult, then join me every Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on The Fringe FM.
Hey, this is Kurt Green from the Kurt Green Hour. You're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
Welcome back to S4 Radio. Welcome back. For those of you just joining us tonight, we are discussing crop circles. On our panel, we have Eric Markham, Cole Wegleitner, R. Keith Andrews, and Michael Hall. Welcome back, everybody.
We're back.
Thanks for having us.
So just before we went to
for a change.
so just before the break, Eric Markham, you had a question you were going to put out there. So if you would please.
And then we talked during the break, and I forgot. Where were we going with that?
Oh, come on, man.
I know. God, I feel like a troll now. It'll
So we were
come.
talking about
If it's-
isotopes. Isotope.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying to think. Why would you actually? This is a different thing, but where are these short-lived radioactive isotopes coming? Why are they part of the process? Why are they a byproduct? You got vanadium, which you use. Vanadium is used in steel hardening. Europium. That's these things aren't tellurium and yttrium or terbium. Why do you need these?
But that's not a question that anyone can answer if we don't know how they're being truthfully made. Like, we don't know how if it is aliens, how they're doing it.
But it's like these aren't extraterrestrial elements or anything. It's stuff we have in the soil as
Yeah, but
it
here's
is.
the thing. If you're doing it from an off-world standpoint, it is quite probable that whatever they're doing stimulates that kind of a chemical to come to the surface. If it's coming on if it's generating from the planet, the process they use for making the imprint in the first place could cause a trigger. Now, frankly, this is one of those issues where I don't know the chemicals behind it. But I do know the side effects of luminous sonic waves.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the molecular compound for just about every different element in everything? And could it not be that whatever forces are being applied to this, the side effect is it's pushing the molecules together to make these compounds?
Well, no, these aren't compounds. These are elements. They aren't.
Yes, but
they aren't compounds. These are individual isotopes. These are individual, elements in their own right.
But think of it this way: on the same line of thinking, that kind of an energy impact could cause the different particles of that element to gravitate towards itself.
Concentrating them somehow.
Bingo.
Or leaching them out of the soil. Maybe a lot of plants, like tobacco, is a known cadmium sequester. It'll pull up the cadmium out of the soil and sequester it within its own structure. maybe something about the crop circle, it's making these plants pull these elements up as the circle's being made, and that's where it showed, that's why something in the process of the crop circle being made is causing the plants to pull this stuff and sequester it out of the soil or bring it up to the surface.
So Kayla's got a point. On the same subject of more complex crops with time, maybe it's like Google Maps, more turns needed for faraway destinations, and with the expansion of space exploration and adding different races of ET, the more complex the directions need to be.
Which is
that kind of goes into what RKA was saying, yeah.
So I've got another theory. So as you know, as you've said numerous times, Keith, the main focus of many of these races is resources on the planet.
Right.
So could some of these crop circles, like you say, landmarks, could they be landmarks for certain kinds of resources? Like
Absolutely.
we're gonna put this crop circle over here for gold. There's gold in that area. We're gonna put this one over here for oil. There's oil in that area. So on and so forth.
Yeah, and that is absolutely a viable option.
So, Michael.
Yeah.
Do we have any crop circles in Washington State?
I don't know currently, but I have heard a few of them in eastern Washington.
I'm going after gold. I'm going to go find me one and dig for gold.
Yeah.
So does Peter Davenport get crop circle reports?
I don't know that Peter does. Although it would be I'll have to ask him that question because it would be so related to UFO sighting reports that Peter gets from all over the United States that you would think that people would mention that maybe even in conjunction with UFO sightings, because that's one of the typical things that you hear about is that there will be a UFO sighted somewhere, and then the next day they go out in that area and they find a crop circle or some kind of design in the crops or vegetation. Matter of fact, in my chat room, Gary is saying, what if these things are discharges from, saucers themselves or some kind of an alien craft in the area? But I'll have to ask Peter whether that's something that he gets reported periodically. He's now getting reports of alien creatures, on the ground. So who knows?
Right. That'd be cause I'm sure he's got historical archives, does he not?
Oh yeah, he does. Matter of fact, the National UFO Reporting Center is got archives going back hundreds of years, actually, of historic reports of UFOs. It might even be one of those things that you could punch into his database and see if those crop circles come up.
Right. Because I'd be curious, too. Hotspots like ESETI Ranch, like Skinwalker Ranch, I wonder if there's any kind of record from ESETI of any crop circle reports there, being as they have so many UFO sightings as well as alien interaction at times. So I'd be wondering.
Oh, yeah. That would be James Gilliland out there at ESETI would be a good person to pose that question to, because he has a giant, very, acres upon acres of a field that they use for a skywatch. I know recently when the UFOI team was there in September, he had Bigfoot casts of Bigfoot prints as well there. So, there you go. You've got, Bigfoot in conjunction with UFOs periodically. You have crop circles in conjunction with UFOs. It almost seems to be that when you see one paranormal activity, that there could be others as well in the area.
So which came first, the Bigfoot or the UFO?
Yeah, good question. Well, of course, people will argue the fact that UFOs might have been around from the very beginning of human history and might even have tweaked us from the hominid stock on the planet to create us. So, but then again, maybe they created us from the hominid stock of Bigfoot. Who knows?
Hey, Cooper, was that a whole chicken egg joke thing that you had going there?
It was.
I kind of figured.
Hey, the first the last crop circle, was just outside of 10 miles south of Grand Coulee Dam, in Cindy and Greg Geib in their field. It was in 2012.
Wow.
Okay.
But it has been listed as what is known as the alien's last warning.
Oh, did it have a
There's
message?
a video on YouTube about it. It doesn't say anything on it. It's a video that unfortunately I'm on with you guys, so I can't watch it. So,
well, and some of these crop circles have been supposedly decoded, with messages. I remember the one that is very famous. It has the picture of an alien, traditional gray alien head with the large, almond eyes, and then looks to be something like a CD disc right next to the alien's face. And I remember that was a very famous crop circle that someone decoded that said something like, beware of false, not prophets, but false, messages or something like that. There is good out there, I remember was part of the message. So it's fascinating to see if there are more messages in these crop circles as we go forward.
Now I remember what my question for R. Keith Andrews is.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Why don't they just, if these crop circles are meant to be a communications, why don't they just write them in a pictogram form we would understand? Or are these some kind of a test? If we can ever learn to decode this, then that means we've developed to a stage where some other kind of contact is possible.
Well, two factors. One, most of them aren't actually for humans. They're for other off-worlders.
Right.
Now, two, the issue of, are they in a sense a test? Not exactly a test, but absolutely, as mankind gets to figure them out, it will indicate a certain level of societal evolution, indicating a readiness to proceed to the next step.
It's kind of like when you raise your kids and you can get away with saying C-A-N-D-Y, and then all of a sudden your kids learn how to spell and they go, oh, candy? Yeah, I want some candy. And then you go, darn. Now I've got to come up with something else to, yeah. Yeah, I'm tracking.
Okay, so there's a comment in the chat room that I think holds some merit, and it's a good question. Trippin said something. You still haven't seen any pics of crop circles and other types of crops besides crops ranging from knee to waist high. Why no corn crop circles? So basically, it's all the was it short ones, knee to waist high, but nothing taller. It's kind of interesting.
I think it's crop density.
I've heard
if you look at the distance between corn, corn has to be planted a certain distance from itself, and I don't think that the pattern would show up as well in corn as it does in a more densely packed medium like wheat, right? This stuff is just pretty much broadcast, and they can grow side by side with, hardly any space between them. I think it's a question of the density of the crop.
Which makes
But
total
I have
sense
heard
from my
of
way.
corn and wheat.
Oh, there's
and a density of stalk as well. Like you look at the stalk of a corn field, like a corn stalk. That thing's huge.
Yeah,
and it would snap. It would probably snap a lot easier.
But think about it. If you had a cornfield, there'd be no doubt that it wasn't natural if you had a corn stalk that was bent without breaking and intertwined. I have heard of documented cases that were corn and wheat.
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, if you Google corn crop circles, you got plenty of photos of them right there. Yeah.
So they have happened.
Oh, yeah. They're very detailed. And these are, full grown, 8-foot tall stalks of corn that are, you can see that they're actually laid down in a circular pattern in the center of one of these circles, but then a couple of them have concentric circles with multiple circles within the concentric circles themselves. So obviously, it looks like these things are laid down just like all the other wheat and barley and other crops that are shorter as well. I don't know how they do it, but it's interesting. They've even got some listed here as non-GMO corn crop circles.
Well, that actually brings up another point. I'm not sure about GMO, but is it possible that depending on GMO, non-GMO makes a difference whether there's radiation in a field?
Oh, that'd be fascinating to study as well. That's a good point.
What do you think, Markham?
Well, I think it could have a bearing on what elements the crop would sequester. Right off the top of my head, I could think where certain genetic modifications could cause, say, a crop to be more likely to pull, say, selenium out of the soil or cadmium out of the soil. Not even necessarily is this a design, but it just might be a byproduct of the genetic manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, something else just hit me too. What if it doesn't have anything to do with the genetic makeup of the plant at all? What if it's just whatever, I'm going to say, machine energy is causing this radiation to be shown up? What if that particular machine, that's what it pulls up? It's just those 4 elements are what it pulls out of the ground. It wouldn't matter where the crop circle was, what the crop was. It just happens to pull those up out of the soil or even out of the plant themselves if it happens to be there, and forms it in those particular spots.
What if the elements that we're finding, these isotopes, are they're a preparation that's put down first so that you can do all the manipulating of the stalks without breaking things off? Kind of like putting gesso on a canvas before you start painting. Maybe these leftover elements are part of the process.
Good question. Good thought.
Which makes total sense. And again, when we're looking at the chemicals, we got to look at the issue of, are they present in all of the crop circles?
Well, that could be the deciding factor between off-world and human.
Yes, absolutely. These are all questions that to check on the frequency of the actual off-worlder ones, the, if you will, legitimate ones. Right. There's a lot that has to be looked through. Do I feel that they're all off-world. No. In all fairness, an extremely small percentage in all likelihood are actual off-world.
So what we need to do, since Michael has the most access with Peter Davenport, have Peter Davenport start focusing on crop circles. And as soon as you get one, UFOI team can run out, grab some samples, give them to Markham, and we'll have definitive answers.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good suggestion. Because if indeed they're doing them here in the state of Washington, we can cover pretty much the whole state if they've got something like that. And you would think Eastern Washington would be a good bet, or even up there in Whatcom County. You know,
I was thinking Linden.
Yeah. All right.
Trying to see if there's anything that those isotopes have in common. It's just like terbium is the last of the lanthanides. There doesn't seem to be anything that links them all together. And they're not really very, I mean, these are rare earth elements, some of them. Like, if you look at how much of any given one of these elements is in the Earth's crust, I mean, you're looking at minute amounts. You know, it's just for vanadium, for instance, you're looking at something that has a, fractional abundance as far as percent of the Earth's crust that has the terbium in it. 0.00028%. This stuff isn't just, laying around. Europium, 0.00018%. This stuff is rare. Vanadium, which is common enough that we use it in our everyday, like it's like a steel strengthener, is only 0.019% abundant in the Earth's crust. So wherever these things are coming from, it's bringing together a very select and a very rare set of elements together.
Any mercury in any of those trace elements? Because we've got a chat room expert here, Gary Tombstone Anderson, says he's been studying these things, and sometimes you'll find mercury traces in the crop circles as well. So maybe that's something else to add to the mix.
Mercury,
possibly.
I think. I think there's a. I will look something up real quick. I'm thinking that somehow mercury is in it's something tickling my damn memory, and I'm going to have to resort to Google.
So,
but something with agriculture and mercury.
The information that I found was, for those four elements, was two American physicists that did some research and some sampling and testing of some of the crop circles. Now, I don't know where those crop circles were taken, and it's very possible that in some other part of the country or some other part of the world, that depending on what elements are there, that those elements may show up specifically to that area. Again, as I'm saying, Markham was looking at what those things had in common together. Other than they're rare, nothing. So the question then becomes, is it what put them there that it becomes the common denominator? Whether it be human or ET. Now, from the sounds of it, when you're thinking about pulling extraordinarily rare elements out of the earth and basically having them bubble up in a plant and burst out. You're talking about something that's not exactly in our arsenal of technology just yet. So it makes you wonder, what ET machine is it that is pulling these particular rare elements out of the earth and into these plants? Are they doing that, or are they putting them there themselves from whatever they have?
Is this the leftover of a compound? They say they subject the area they're going to lay the crop circle down in. Maybe it's some kind of a chemical compound that softens the crop to where you get the nodes and you don't get the breakage.
Right, exactly.
It's a whatever whatever we see when we see a crop circle being made those few times, it's non-contact when it's not a human made. You have an orb floating above a field, and this design takes place. It doesn't look like there's a physical contact. So is this are these radioactive isotopes a leftover of something that was used to treat the field to allow the crop circle to be made? It gets used up in the process, and these things, it's like you lay this chemical down, the process occurs, and these elements are the waste, like the silver bromide that was left over from developing old school X-ray photographic film.
Exactly.
Or are they just a beacon? Could they be those chemicals just a beacon for that drone, if you want to call it a drone, to come to that point in the field to lay the crop circle, which is already pre-programmed in this drone?
Could be, yeah. You know what? Thinking about that, if you want to make an area stand out, put a concentration of these rare earth elements out there, because if you're scanning for where you're supposed to lay down the design, an unusual concentration of those radioisotopes may be the marker. That's the X.
Yeah.
X marks the spot. This combination of elements is put down because they are unusual and they are rare to find in abundance in one area.
The
celestial Thor thumb.
It's as simple as a marker.
Yeah, and it'd be similar to the fact that there's certain isotopes and stuff that they use when they do imaging for cancers and stuff that will hit a cancer and light it up like a target. For you to go after with pinpoint radiation or whatever it may be. So it's very possible that they're using the same principle for them to put down some pattern, where they lay out this isotope and say, here it is, and whatever is doing as Keith said, it's a drone of ET drone basically comes down, it's pre-programmed to look for this isotope as its marker, and boom, there it is. It lays it out.
Interesting. Yeah. There's another aspect of these things, too, that since I was just up with Coop and Grant Cameron at the Caribou Paracon, Grant is saying that a lot of this stuff, he thinks, is the ETs trying to just kind of bring us along and kind of get us used to their presence. Yeah, and he pointed out initially that, why the heck do UFOs have to have lights on them, in the night sky? What's the deal with coming across an entire galaxy and then all of a sudden they come in our atmosphere and they want to have lights on there? You would think that they don't have a problem with running into airplanes, but it might be that they're trying to get our attention. And these crop circles might be the same.
Well, don't they have to have their own kind of running lights in their own world?
Yeah,
probably
you
not.
You also got to remember, coming into this world, if they don't want to create a big problem, you take a look at the air traffic here, and air traffic always uses lights as a way of being visible. Well, if you're trying to come in and see the place, even if you're trying to do it relatively inconspicuously. Sure, it may not matter to the UFO, because of force field and armor technologies. It may not make any difference at all if it gets run into by a 737. But it will certainly play havoc with the 737.
Good. I want to see a no smoking sign on a UFO.
I don't.
Isn't that kind
if
of
they
like
ever take me, I want to be allowed to smoke.
Is
Right.
that kind of putting a seatbelt sign on a motorcycle?
Yeah.
So Kayla wants to know, could crop circles be a leftover signature from a gateway and the radiation used as a fuel source for transport?
Well,
Sounds
again,
pretty good
technically
idea.
the answer is yes, except for the complexity of them.
Agreed. And again,
one of the ways mercury could get into a crop, though, I mean, they've been having trouble. There's, some literature about, mercury toxicity in soil. Think of one of the ways that you get a high nitrogen fertilizer. You use trash fish or fish byproducts. What is one of the biggest problems we're having with fish here now? They're telling you not to eat as much because it's got mercury in it.
Right.
If you're using fish-based waste, the bones, the crap that you can't eat, once they fillet, you see all these billions of tons of filleted fish products in the grocery store. The waste is in turn used as a fertilizer base. Well, that's where you're getting your mercury in the soil, is from the piscine source material, the fish source material.
Yeah, they use a lot of that for fertilizer nowadays in a lot of areas, especially where fish is more plentiful. They will do that. I don't know how well that applies to a lot of the farmed fish, though, and that is usually where most of your stuff from stores and restaurants comes from. It's usually farmed nowadays, minus some of the stuff that they catch in Alaska and a few other places. So, yes, I see it, but then again, I question, are we having the mercury level problems in the farm fish as well, or no?
But that doesn't apply to what they're using in the farm's fields, which could be the source of mercury in the crop circles. I see that point.
Yeah.
What you eat obviously is different. What you eat could come from farm fish because of the lack of mercury. But if they're just grabbing up random fish out of the ocean and using
the
that for
bycatch,
right?
Yeah, because they throw out these god awful, horrible nets that are miles long. Yeah, they're getting the fish they want, but they're getting a lot of bycatch.
Mm-hmm.
The worst part, the fish that have the most mercury in them are swordfish, king mackerel, tilefish, shark, and tuna, and they're all wild caught.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Farm raised is catfish, tilapia, and salmon, which all have low or very low mercury levels. However, that's individually. When you grind up 2 million tons of waste fish byproduct to make fertilizer with it, it concentrates whatever those so-called low avidity, low mercury level fish have in them. And now all the mercury or all the toxins that all those fish have are concentrated in your fertilizer product.
Right. Exactly. Trip has a good question. He says, has the crop circles reappeared yearly in the same spots with the same designs?
And I don't think there's ever been a crop circle with the same design.
Yeah, repeat. I think they've always evolved. They've always got more complicated. The design has always changed.
It's never been the same, and I don't believe they've ever been in the same spot. I actually that's another good.
Let me do a quick search on that, because it seems to me they interviewed this one farmer who was getting a little. See, if I remember right, he was getting a little ticked off because like every bloody year they choose whoever they are. I wish they'd pick on somebody else's field. So
if that happens, that will lend a lot of good credence that yes, you've got gold or oil under your pasture. Why?
Or
butthole neighbors that like tearing your crop up if they're man-made.
The other thing too is crap! I lost my train of thought. I love that. That's great.
Now,
can I say something quick?
Yeah,
go ahead.
On that fertilizer subject, just looked it up. There have been crop circles inside of organic fields. So an organic field is not allowed to use a fish-based fertilizer.
I did not know that.
They are required to use plant-based only. So a plant-based slurry is used.
Are they still getting mercury?
I don't know. That's the thing. That's kind of what I'd like to find out is if they're able to.
That would be a valid
basis
point.
Of those manures are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But I can't find anything on whether those crop circles themselves had a mercury signature.
Oops. I think mercury may be just an accidental on some of these crops for the simple thought of what Markham was saying. I guess a good way to prove that would be as if there was any mercury showing up in the organic crop circles. But otherwise, it may be just an accidental thing that happens to be there, minus the other elements that are showing up in all the rest of them. Remembering what I was going to say, we're talking about crop circles, maybe yes, maybe no showing up in the same fields. On the no idea of it, I mean, you think about it this way: if you had a chalkboard setting up somewheres and you put your message on it, someone came along and erased it. Do you want to put your message back there again, or you want to put it somewhere else where it might not get erased?
Yep, here comes the combine.
Yeah.
Well, here's just a thought. But we're talking about stuff left behind. The curious side on my end would be, what is it or what element is missing from that area?
That's a good point. Has there ever been a case where they found one that it has been missing?
I have no idea myself. Research side of things is your guys' department.
He comes up with the ideas. We got to go look for it.
Well, one of the things that lends credence to the theory that they're man-made is where they show up. I mean, they tend to show up near roads, in dense, in populated areas. Let's see, I lost that. I had that up in front of me.
Aren't most crops near roads? Usually, you gotta to get there to harvest.
It's usually a requirement for farming equipment to get to them.
Yeah.
It's
just saying.
Like, there's all sorts of studies that do that sort of thing.
But if they're not near roads, if they're out in the middle of the wilderness, they're not going to be found.
What is that too?
And destroyed by nature by the time anyone comes across them.
Well,
okay. Here's what it says. Circles in the United Kingdom are not distributed randomly across the landscape, but appear near roads, areas of medium to dense population, and cultural heritage monuments such as Stonehenge or Avebury.
Well, that don't surprise me.
So it's not like they're... But then again, if you're putting these damn things down, that's the problem. If they're just for ET and they're not for human consumption or contemplation, why not put them up somewhere remote?
Well, and that's the thing. We don't know.
They're always somewhere where we're going to see them.
We don't know
the farmer
what the
comes out in the
purpose
morning and sees his crop's been destroyed and just gets really upset. And
we don't know if they're for them or for us. It could be both. It could be either one. And if you think about it a little bit, the UK isn't that big. So most crops are going to be in mid-populated areas.
Right.
Because it's a small place to start
you
with.
You just don't get options on that.
No.
But they have,
you don't have
they
a
have
choice.
a lot of wilderness because they're concentrated in their cities. London, Suffolk, these they tend to be high density in cities and not so much out in the country.
But take a step
back. We had a guest on last week talking about there's a lot of wilderness in Great Britain because the population density, once you get away from the cities, is not very high.
That's not where the fields are.
But again, how many crop circles do we not see?
That's true.
I mean, look at Alaska, look at Montana, look at how many crop circles happen that because of their location, we don't see. We only see the ones by the roads because that's where people travel. We only see the ones in populated places because, well, that's where the people are. How many don't we see?
Well, don't you find it funny, though, that crop circles seem to appear in... It's almost like there's a culture-dependent element here. They show up in developed, secularized Western civilizations. Great Britain, England, Sweden, they don't show up in Muslim countries. You don't have reports of crop circles in Muslim countries.
There's not many crops in Muslim countries.
But you've got all that sand.
Yes, but you've also got the
you
wind
can do
that goes with
mandalas in sand.
Think about it, though. Have you ever seen a windstorm, a sandstorm?
Yeah,
your crop circle goes all the same. And besides that, if you have a crop circle in the sand, you got to wonder who's trying to harvest the sand.
And that crop circle would be gone in 5 minutes in a sandstorm.
Oh, yeah. It'd be gone in 5 minutes without a sandstorm.
Right. So you're not going to
they don't show up in, like Indonesia. You don't have report that, that's a predominantly theocratic or, religious, they're pretty much run by the Muslims. You don't have reports of crop circles in Indonesia. They have rice paddies. They have cereal crops there that could be used. It seems like wherever these things are popping up, secularism is the common element.
Okay, that could come down to ruling religion too.
I was about to say, let me play devil's advocate on that. How many people do you know don't report a ghost here because of ridicule? Can you imagine reporting a crop circle in a Muslim country or based on the culture and the religion? How much ridicule?
Yes, I can.
Yes, they would see.
In that, if you're having trouble, you can and there's actually been a news case. These people there was something to do with their house being haunted by a jinn. Okay, you have the what I'm getting at, there was this supernatural element causing a problem to this family, and they went openly to the authorities and said, we've got a jinn screwing with us.
Yeah, but that's a jinn. I mean, that's part of the religion itself. But it's part of the religion.
That's part of their culture.
But you also have, the Ifrit, they have spirits that,
Sure, that's all part of That's all part of their religious beliefs. Now, you take some of these places that are so strict, even though they have religious beliefs about some supernatural stuff, and you take something like, I mean, you look at Christians and they say everything's the devil or a demon, if it's an alien or anything else. Now, you take an alien type thing like that in an area where they don't even want to speak of that, and the government says if you do, we'll kill you. Okay, you're not going to get a report coming out of one of those countries of something that could be alien if they're going to, tell you that your head's going to be lopped off in the town square. Crickets.
And that is, in all fairness, the reality behind it. But the other thing you got to remember is when you start looking at the different religions and what have you, again, if you're dealing with people with races that are setting this down, setting these marks down, yes, for their own, but also as a way for humans to start understanding them, you gotta look at what the race in particular is up to as to why it's picking that particular way of doing it.
And not only that, you'd want to put your message down in a place where somebody might actually want to try to look at it or decipher it, not somebody who's going to ignore it on religious belief.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's another whole conspiracy theory about some of these crop circles is that if you were doing any counterintelligence campaign here to try to help muddy the waters on these things, some of these things could be formed by different governments, the U.S. government or whatever, with Star Wars technologies or, directed energy weapons or whatever, just to make sure that people are more confused than ever when it comes to the real messages that might be laid down by the ET crop circles. I could see that happening in this whole arena as well. Some of these crop circles are not necessarily human-made by civilians, but human-made by the government.
But that would fall back under are these caused by energy weapons? If it was something like Star Wars or something of that nature, I would think it would cause more damage than what you're seeing.
Well, it's moderated. It's modulated. There's got to be a way to control the amount of energy that's being expended.
But if you're just talking a particle beam or some kind of laser like what they're talking with Star Wars, you would be lacking the isotopes. You'd probably be lacking the elements that are involved with the ones we're seeing.
Not only that, when you start talking about the possibility of anything military in nature, when have you known the military to try anything gentle?
Right.
Blow it up now.
Abrams comes to mind.
Bikini Atoll. Yeah. That's why I love these kind of programs where we're talking about something that we can't pin down. It just stimulates the brain to think of all these, people might have listening to me like, well, he doesn't believe in crop circles. I believe there's something to them, but I can also see how you could fake them if you wanted to. And I like the idea that maybe some of these are put out there by military or, New World, pick your conspiracy group, put out there to muddy the waters. That's a very good idea. Disinformation. UFOs and disinformation have been going hand in hand since Jesse Marcel and the weather balloon.
Right.
And I'm kind of the opposite camp a little bit. I think it's more plausible that there's something else out there causing some of this stuff. Though I obviously have seen that there has been some human faking it, and I think that some of it is faked. But there's a lot of the stuff that you look at on crop circles that they aren't sure if it's fake. Let's say they aren't sure if it's fake. They can't come to a solid conclusion on it. And you look at some of the evidence on that stuff, and I look at it and go, there has to be something far more advanced to this than anything that we're playing with.
Yeah, I look at the soil density. If you're looking at a crop circle, and only in the area of the circle itself is the soil compacted, and everywhere else around it is at normal density, where it's compacted beyond what a human walking on it will do, then you gotta ask what's making the impact.
Right.
I think the bottom line, since we're coming down to the last 6 minutes of the show, is what needs to happen is find a current crop circle and get a solid analysis of the soil and a solid analysis of any kind of crop structure, and get it to
both
a solid
inside
lab
and outside the circle.
Right, and get it to a solid lab that we know it isn't going to be tainted. It's not going to be hidden. It's not going to be.
You're up.
Exactly. To get any kind of definitive proof, and go to it. Well, it's not like they're that common, but try to get 2 or 3 different crop circles and compare them. That's how you get a baseline for crop circle. Right. And then if there's any kind of modification, you can say, okay, well, that one's probably human because it's lacking these elements, or so on and so forth.
Your soil samples should honestly be so one from direct center, and then one 10 meters out, another 10 meters out,
right,
until you are well outside of that circle as well.
Yeah. And one of the things
it shouldn't just be one or two from the inside.
Levengood, when he did his studies, found that the grain from the crops that were involved in the crop circle, that which was actually part of the geoglyph, those seeds grew slower than their counterparts outside the actual geoglyph. So that leads credence that there's some kind of outside process that's screwing with the fertility of these plants in the process of making the geoglyph.
If you're finding different types of elements that weren't there before or aren't in the other types, like the other part of the crop, that would make sense. Even aluminums and different types of metals would do that.
I heard a few cases where nothing would grow after the crop circle. It was barren. Yeah, it was barren land. Has anyone heard cases like that?
I've heard of them, and that was what brought my attention to the idea that what is missing from the soil.
Right.
So I looked into that for the last 15 minutes. I couldn't find anything on that.
Okay.
No
there was
that I could find had.
There's a UFO case that you might want. I'm thinking it took place in Wisconsin. That there was this circle in the ground. It was looked for UFO trace evidence. I think it was in the 70s. Whatever this thing was that landed burned a circle in the ground.
Right.
And nothing has ever grown, or last I knew, as far as the reporter was following up, nothing grew there again.
and
it sterilized the soil.
And I would call that a UFO landing site versus a crop circle, because that happens quite often in UFO landing sites, non-crop circle related.
Well, and if we're talking about crop circles being markers for some type of element or mineral or something that's in the ground there, it wouldn't surprise me too much that something would not grow in that ground afterwards, because if whatever made the crop circle and then something came in after to pull the elements out because that was the marker for it, that would very easily explain why something wouldn't grow there anymore. They literally stripped that ground of those minerals and elements to where the fact that it became sterile and wouldn't grow anything.
But on the flip side of that, you've got the farmers that are complaining about the crop circles being put in their fields every year. So it's apparently going there. So I don't know.
Well, and you got the ones where as soon as it happens, the farmer gets right out there and mows it.
Yeah.
Destroys it.
Because they don't like the ridicule.
All right, they don't like people.
Not just the ridicule, but the problem is you get everyone and their friggin' everyone and their
they don't want people trespassing.
Everyone going.
No.
Yeah. Just having someone walk through
okay, guys.
Some 11 Goods research in the
we are at the end of the show, guys, and I've got to run us on out here. So I know it just you'd like to just have more of it. That's for sure. So I would like to thank our panel, Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, Cole Wegleitner, our owner of Statement of Sound DJ Productions, R. Keith Andrews, our FMP alien specialist, Michael Hall of UFOI team. Join us next week at midnight Pacific Standard Time. We'll be asking the question, why is Halloween such a draw for beginners in the paranormal? You can find us on Spreaker.com, thefringe.fm, and KSVU 90.1 for our local listeners. I would like to thank all of our listeners because without you, there is no S4. Good night, and remember, keep your eyes to the skies.
Hello, I'm Zac from the Zac Brown Band, and we're proud to be teaming up with our friends at Wells Fargo to show support for our nation's veterans. Wells Fargo is committed to helping service members in their transition to civilian life and providing our nation's heroes with meaningful and challenging careers. If you're a veteran, consider building your next career at Wells Fargo.